Good morning again, and welcome back to Good Morning Tobago. Guys, this morning we're talking about how agriculture is being advanced on the island of Tobago here. And we're talking about that $51.8 million mega farm project, along with a number of other initiatives that are taking place under the Division of Food Security, Natural Resources, and the Environment and Sustainable Development. This morning, to have that conversation with me, I have in studio Mrs. Tamika Seales-Monsano, as well as Miss Karen Shaw, and they're both as well. Um, we have Miss Monsano, who is the crop production manager at the Department of Agriculture, and Miss Shaw is the agro investment specialist for the Department of Agriculture as well. Good morning, ladies, and welcome to the set here on Tobago Updates.
Good morning, and thank you for having us.
No problem. And so a lot is happening on the agricultural front on the island, and we heard so much about it last Monday when the Chief Secretary made his budget presentation. And so there are a number of areas that you guys are focusing on in advancing food security here in Tobago. And you are working closely with TADCO to make that dream a reality. One of the things that was mentioned that stood out to a lot of persons was that mega farm project, and that is costing us $51.8 million. That's the investment that we are making in that particular project. But I want you, Mrs. Monsano, to tell us a bit on a broader scale. What are some of the overarching projects that you guys are looking into for the next year? And what are some of the things that we can expect?
Okay, thank you, Ms. Felix. Of course, it is a privilege to share information with the public, and especially in Tobago, concerning the activities of the Division of Food Security for the upcoming period. We have a number of projects that we would have embarked upon. I think the most current would be climate resilience, based on climate resilience. So, towards that end, we would have looked at some policies of the national policies in terms of the climate change policy, the national tourism policy, and the draft diaspora policy. And from that, we would have also looked at the climatic conditions affecting farmers, what the farmers would have been through last year in terms of drought, in terms of land slippage and damage to their enterprises, and realize that there's a need for us to address these issues. Towards that end, we would have developed a climate resilient unit. We're in the process of doing that. We have already a member there who, of course, is charged with responsibility of building out that unit. Part of the response by the division would be the installation of solar polyvoltaic systems at schools. So we have a number of schools earmarked, particularly in those areas that experience low voltage. So we're trying to demonstrate that we can use renewable energy sources to meet our needs and to kind of bridge the gap where we have problems occurring in certain areas.
And what did you say that was called? Can you tell us what it is
A
again?
solar polyvoltaic system.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. So those will be installed at schools. The idea is to target our youth do more focused programs for the youth, so that, because remember, in the next few years, they would be our next generation. They would be our next leaders. They would be the next persons carrying us forward in terms of agricultural production, and they need to be prepared. Yeah. And also they are able to bridge the gap between themselves and their parents who are already involved in agriculture, or at least influence them to get involved in agriculture. So that's one of the things we're doing there. We also have a unit within the Department of Agriculture that is currently collecting field data using the COBO Toolbox ARC. It's an ARC GIS platform, and that collects data in terms of climate responses to agriculture. What is the effect on the farmers' production levels, whether it's crop or livestock, so that we can plan more effectively what kind of training we need to offer, what kind of mitigation strategies we need to put in place, those kinds of things. Yes, that's in terms of climate resistance. We do have a lot of other programs. We have, for example, the banana the banana and sweet potato intercropping system,
Okay.
where we're demonstrating new technology in terms of irrigation in the use of banana production, and the fact that you can intercrop with bananas to get some returns before your final investment reaches fruition. Yeah.
All
There's
right.
so many. There's so
Right, right.
many.
And
So you
I Miss
right.
Shore, I want to bring you into the conversation here because you are responsible for agro investment. And what I want to ask you is, if we don't get the allocation that we're looking for in the upcoming budget, how do we reprioritize to ensure that many of the main focuses as presented by your colleague here are still done?
Again, good morning to Tobago, and thank you, Shenell, for having me on the show this morning. As it is now, yes, we are dependent on funding for most of our projects, but there are still a lot of things that we could do internally in the division to help to build and develop the sector in Tobago. Um, we have a number of internal activities taking place. For instance, we would have a couple of years ago set up the the research and information unit in the division, which is housed, which has been repurposed and is now outside collecting data on the sector. One of the things that we find happening in the agricultural sector that we have a bit of lack of information, and therefore we need to develop our ability and capacity to capture information on the data on what happens in the sector and allow the policymakers to make more informed decisions. So one of those projects that we want to run is that we have a lot of surveys running currently. We have a farmer survey that is on the ground where we're trying to capture what the active farmers that we have. We have a number of farmers that are registered on the system, but we may not know who are active and what they are doing, how much they're doing, the volumes, the varieties, and so. So that is one area that we could look at. We are also about to start a consumption survey that is supposed to provide information on what we consume as a people in Tobago. And with the farmers survey, we can now determine to a certain measure of accuracy the imports that come into Tobago. So that once we know what the majority of things that we are importing, then we could look to put strategies in place to do some food, reduce our import bill, whether it's from Trinidad or from abroad. So those are some of the initiatives that we could do inside. We have our training sessions for our farmers and all other stakeholders that is ongoing. So we train our stakeholders constantly. We try to keep them updated with the technologies that are available to, to aid in improving our capacity in the sector. So there are a number of initiatives that we could do internally that we will continue to do, even though we may not get a grant allocation from central government for the sector.
Excellent. And guys, we're going to take a quick break right here and we'll be right back. And we have Assemblyman Nathisha Charles-Pantin who's going to be joining us right after this. See you soon.
Hey. Tobago updates.
Welcome back to GMT, guys. And as I told you right before the break, when we get back, Assemblyman Nathisha Charles-Pantin, who is also the Secretary for the Division of Food Security, Natural Resources, the Environment and Sustainable Development, is joining into the conversation. Good morning, Assemblyman. Oh, I'm unable to hear you. Okay, and we have also joining us
Good morning,
Mr.
Miss Felix.
Ricardo
Good
Alfred.
morning to the panel. You're hearing me now?
Yes, I can hear you. So we also have the chairman for TADCO, Mr. Ricardo Alfred, who you can also see on screen there joining us. However, there are a number of activities that you guys are planning, Assemblyman Nathisha Charles-Pantin, and I saw that you guys are doing this mega farm project, which is costing us $51.8 million. And we are hoping to get that allocation. But as I said before, and I would have asked Ms. Shaw, granted that we do not get what we have requested, we have to find a way to move forward and still get these projects done because Tobago people don't want to hear promises or lofty ideas, but want to see things actually materialize into reality. And so we would have briefly discussed some of those other funding initiatives. How are you distributing these projects within the different departments? Because see, we're doing this mega farm project, as well as the poultry contract initiative, pest and diseases, youth and agriculture funding, um, for private farmers and home gardening. Are these things being done under TADCO, or how are they being distributed among the different departments?
Well, first, let me congratulate your guests for the good job that they did at the JSC yesterday, and also the milestones that they have achieved with the Poultry Contract Farm Initiative. The initiative began under the division's company, the Tobago Agribusiness Development Company, and it was created because of the effort to reduce imports of certain goods into Tobago. And I'll get to answering your question, but I just want to give you some background as to what has happened already and why we took on the initiative. Now, traditionally, in recent past, we have been importing Tyson chicken and those are foreign chickens, and um, we all know that they have a very high chemical content, right? We have a lot of cancer. People are dying from cancers, and we have a lot of diabetes that is prevalent on the island. And as the Secretary of Agriculture, my first responsibility would be to the farmers and all the other stakeholders, the agro-processors, the fisher folk, right? So we have to embark on reducing imports into Tobago, right, and losing forex. And TADCO came up with this initiative because of the market research that they would have done, and they would have identified the demand of 250,000 chickens per month on the island, right? And the spin-off from this, the farmers will create employment for young farmers getting in the industry, farmers that are already in the industry, and of course, we cannot be supporting farmers all these years, giving them land, giving them incentives, and buy foreign chicken, to bring into Tobago. So it's an excellent initiative, and of course, it will be rolled out in phases as TADCO, jointly with the division, they have been doing. So if you looked at the budget, you would see the milestones that TADCO and the division they have achieved in producing or supporting poultry farmers. I believe it's about 60 thereabout, and the number of chickens that have been brought in for rearing, and of course TADCO purchase the chicken live weight, package it, and sell it. So they have been doing it in phases, training them, giving them small amounts of chicken, giving them the technical assistance, providing the support up front, the chicken, the feed, veterinary assistance, right? They've been getting all these up front so that it reduces the burden on the farmer. And everything will be done in phases. Agriculture is one of the divisions that we hardly receive funding because of the allocation is very small. And we have been creative enough to tap into funds externally from international agencies. We've been liaising with other divisions. We've been liaising with Trinidad, to get the support that we need. And we'll roll it out in phases. We have been working with farmers where they are. We have been working with those persons, the technical people. We have identified lands, and we will roll it out in phases if we don't get the $50+ million to do that. So we're not going to sit down as usual. We're going to work tirelessly to ensure that we increase food on the island.
Excellent. And one of the questions that I would have asked is how are you distributing many of these projects throughout the division and TADCO, or are most of these projects going to be done under TADCO?
Well, it depends. Now, the TADCO has no vets, for example, and the veterinary services, they have been, the farmers would have been receiving veterinary services from the division. right? So it depends on where we have the resources, right? But again, as I said, we'll roll it out in phases. We have started, visiting the different sites. We have farmers already under the project. We also have farmers doing mixed crops already. Throughout the years, we have new farmers coming on board, especially after COVID. We have officers there would have done an excellent job in terms of mobilizing those farmers to become registered under the division, and the extension officers, they are also active in the field. We have certain um, you know gaps to fill. We don't have a vet lab, for example, but the quality of technical assistance that the farmers get, that is already on in train. Everybody getting what they need to get until we get the infrastructure in place. Right, as I said, agriculture is severely underfunded. It has been for years, and what I like about this division is that even though we are waiting, each fiscal to get money, we have been moving. We have been moving, especially within the last year and a half.
Excellent. And Mr. Ricardo Alfred, if you are there and you are hearing me, I am unable to see you clearly. However, I can tell that you're there. How are you allocating some of these projects and some of the resources that you have within TADCO? And at what point do you bring the division into the question with everything that you have planned?
Right. So good morning again. So first, I want to really correct that statement. TADCO is in collaboration with the marketing division, with the veterinary, well, all aspects of the division. I would really want to take this time to really recognize all of the good work that the various division staff is doing to assist us. I personally want to thank Mr. Dongs, our vet from the division, who is definitely helping us in rolling out this whole poultry project. The idea behind this really is to collaborate with the division and various parts of the PHA, and also with the relevant authorities, both in Tobago and in Trinidad. So health will have to be involved in terms of these types of operations going forward.
Excellent. And when we talk about the importance of research and gathering data, I think you'd have touched on that a bit earlier in the show. Is this the research department at the division that is handling this type of work? And when we talk about research, is it research in all aspects in regards to food security, natural resources, the environment, and everything that falls under the division? Or is it research specifically to crop production?
No,
Right.
the focus really, it's a divisional unit.
Right.
And we are attempting to gather information on all aspects of the sector, whether it is in farming, fisheries, even in our environmental issues. We do that besides the main agriculture that we know, both livestock and crop. So we are collecting data from everyone. The unit as itself would have, as I said, initially conducting some surveys. In the fisheries department, we do collect data. We have data collected at the landing sites by about 17 data collectors. And that information in the past was housed in more or less silos within each department. And there was not enough dissemination of that information throughout, so that it would not filter up to our policymakers like our secretary, who would now be able to make informed decisions. So now that the unit has been repurposed, one of our main activities now is to gather information that has already been collected, that is in pockets within the division, and now transform that into relevant information that could be forwarded out in the publications, on Facebook and all the online platforms, so that all stakeholders in the sector will have access to this information. So if you're an individual out there who might be interested in investing in the sector, you would now have real-time, accurate data to tell you, listen, this is the production we have on the island for this, if that's your raw material that you require. These may be the markets that are available now, especially as we finish the consumption survey and we have an idea of the volumes that we consume on the island, especially like for the poultry project. They have an estimation at about 250 birds per month. But once we roll out the survey and we hit all the establishments or food-related establishments, now we could do it with that accuracy. listen, during the months of this year, we do this volume of consumption. This period of the year, we do this volume of consumption. So but they'll take that back now to farmers now who could now do their crop cycling to say, well, no, I will put down this crop in anticipation that consumption would increase at this point in time. So that is how we want to integrate the data, have the forward and backward linkages within the sector, so we start to make informed decisions.
Excellent. And my question to you is, how long has your research unit under the division been in existence, and what type of policies have been created through the data that has been collected over the years by that department?
Well, the emergence of that information unit really started within a department, the marketing department, way back in the 90s. They were collecting data. There was an initial consumption survey that was done way back in the 90s that really brought a lot of data forward for the policymakers to make decisions back then. Subsequently, because it was housed in a department within the division, the focus was a bit narrow. So it was thought that we should bring it out at a divisional level and expand the focus of the unit to capture data in all the different sectors that we cover. So out of that, we would have been able to determine issues like market issues that would have propped up. We would have worked closely with the hospitality sector in pulling data forward. So we had an understanding of the cycle of the hospitality sector during the high and low peak seasons. What are some of the things that are captured on the menus? And that was fed back to a certain extent into agriculture to inform their farmers, listen, at this point in time, we can plant this and we may be able to capture a market of X or Y.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And Mr. Alfred, Ricardo Alfred, a lot was spoken about the capital of paradise last week in the budget presentation. So tell us a bit about some of the plans moving forward. We heard about some of the achievements over the past year. Tell us about some of the plans for that moving forward.
Right, so as you would know, the capital of paradise is back into operation. The vessel would have came back um, about 8 days ago from a trip. We did pretty well actually. We were able to export about 71 tuna and a bycatch that came to Tobago of just under 1,100 pounds would have come to Tobago to be sold for the persons who are interested. The aim of the capital of paradise really is to encourage fishermen to not just understand fishing, but to create a sector. So you have to get them trained and get them away from the period fishing. The long line vessel is a vessel that is used to go out to sea for a longer period, catch a certain catch, and then be able to build an industry. We have to encourage more persons to go into this direction. We have been engaged by a few private people to have TADCO manage their asset for them. So we're just working out some negotiations there in terms of what the owner would receive and that type of thing. But I believe that TADCO is now poised definitely to manage some of the assets of the private persons who may have a bit more funding to do this type of operation. So um, so far we are doing pretty good. The aim of this really is to promote what the fishing sector needs to really make it sustainable.
Excellent. And Ms. Monsano, a lot of things are happening, especially in the crop production front. But when farmers become engaged with the division, there may be particular areas that you guys are focusing on within that period of time. Moving forward, what type of crops are you guys encouraging farmers to invest in? What can we see the division throwing its support behind?
Okay. Thanks for that question, Ms. Felix. So there are a number of different crop types that the division would push towards the end of agro-processing in particular. For example, cassava, sweet potato, bananas lend themselves to not just local, just the produce, the raw product, but they lend themselves to agro-processing, which is where you have your value addition, which is where the money lies. Yes, so we want farmers to develop and agro-processors to develop on the island, because remember, we're leading to entrepreneurship. That's what's going to lead to sustainability. We have dasheen, ginger production, whatever is going to help the farmer to realize profit and to help the agro processors on the island to develop is what is our mainstay and focus. So although the division has these main products or main commodities that we're looking at, of course we are looking for input from the public to say what they demand, what they think would work for them, and then therefore we can assess it and decide whether we can go forward with a particular other product that we might not have thought of.
Excellent. And Assemblyman Nathisha, Charles-Pantin, do farmers come directly to the division to be engaged with their crops in regards to production, or do they go straight to TADCO?
Farmers access both the division's resources and TADCO. But I want to go back to an issue that was raised by a popular businessman in Tobago, just if you permit me for a bit. And he raised in a meeting that the division and TADCO, that we should be purchasing the foreign chicken because it's cheaper, and the division isn't looking at particular crops such as beans and watermelon and things like that. And I want to address something. Now, you cannot ask the division and TADCO to forget about producing crops and forget about livestock production, set that aside and import goods, right? The mandate of the division is to produce, and not only to produce, but to produce quality goods. And we cannot import the chicken, the American chicken, over what the farmers can do here. We need to support the farmers, and that's the primary goal of the division, to support the farmers in that regard. And if you look further than just the chicken, the division would have embarked on producing popular produce like onions, for example, at one of the Goldsboro station, right? Those are popular things that we would ordinarily purchase, in the groceries. And I'll tell you what, and I said this before, when I was given the onions from the station, I compared it to what I would buy in the grocery. And I still have onions that they were given to me in March. I still have it on my counter. And it's still sturdy, it's fresh. The quality excellent, and it's a good example of what the kind of quality produce that we can produce on the island. And we are demonstrating to the farmers that they can get into producing onions, producing carrots, and the aim is to reduce our food import bill. Yeah. So we have to look at that. We have to look at the high chemical content, and that's why we have to look at the vet lab. We have to establish the vet lab to provide additional services, right? So we cannot take one businessman selfishness into consideration, where he could maximize his profits alone and compromise the health of Tobago people and the children of Tobago. We have been introducing farming into schools, right, from ECC, the 4-H club, primary, secondary school, all the officers. They have been doing an excellent job. Even TADCO has engaged the schools in the poultry contract farm initiative, showing the children how to farm, right, the environmental way, and to produce healthy food, right? So I just wanted to put that out there, right? We cannot compete with America in producing poultry. And I'm hoping that the businessman would have visited the farm in America to see the conditions. He doesn't know, right? But we know that what we are producing here, it is healthy, right? It's not pumped with chemicals, and the breast isn't big as the whole chicken, right? What we have here, it's something healthy, and we can feed the population. We're looking at food security and food serenity. All right.
Excellent. And you touched a bit on it, but I would like for you to go in a bit in detail in regards to what can we expect from that youth in agriculture project, and is this an initiative that is under which department um, of the division?
I wouldn't say it's concentrated within a specific department, right? But our crop production manager, Tamika, she has done an excellent job with youth. Even in World Food Day, she always creates an opportunity for the youth. Her proposals are excellent in that regard. TADCO, they have been embracing youths as well in some of the projects that they have rolled out, right? So we have been engaging the youth across the entire division, embracing them in the best way we can to ensure that we pass on the knowledge that we have at the division. And I am extremely proud of the division in that regard. So I could ask Tamika to expound a bit, and Mr. Alfred can also explain what he has done.
Okay. Well, thanks, Secretary. So just to give a little bit more details in terms of the division's involvement with the youth. Normally, we have a 4-H unit and we also have a home gardening unit, and they are actively engaged with our young people. Just in June, we had 300 students being inducted into the 4-H program, and therefore that is already a fertile ground in which to promote agriculture and agricultural based technology and products. I would have spoken about the photovoltaic systems that we'd be giving out to certain schools having low energy supplies. Yes, throughout through an aspect of the division. Through the home gardening program, we have done some training with the like brownie clubs, youth groups, assisting youth hostels, probation hostels, that kind of thing, all towards promoting the different production practices in agriculture, showing youth the opportunity that they have in agriculture, exposing them to new technology. For example, through the home gardening program, we would have distributed smart watering systems as a form of introducing hydroponics to the young people, to our school age children, down from the ECC level, the primary level, and the secondary level, all with the aim of showing that there is no excuse not to do agriculture. If you have low land, if you have land issues, or you have limited access to land, these smart systems are a way forward in terms of increasing your production. We have vertical farming that farmers can use to maximize the space instead of
And all of
going
these
straight
things are
across,
being taught within
all
the
of these
4-H
things are being
program.
introduced through the 4-H and home gardening program, as well as of course, through the extension part of it. But I will leave Mr. Alfred to talk about the livestock section in contribution in terms of the poultry production aspect.
Mr. Alfred.
Yes, right. So, I mean, I would just touch a little on what we are doing with the youths. Huh? The youths are the future, and through the 4-H, we would have embraced them in terms of like a big brother, if you want to call it that, in terms of assisting them in achieving the different goals of agriculture. Persons, especially youths, must see themselves as businessmen or businesswomen involved in the agricultural trade. They no longer can see themselves just as farmers. They are more than farmers. And it's about teaching them business, teaching them the importance of agriculture, and also understanding what can be grown here locally. As relates to the livestock, we would have partnered with the marketing division in terms of teaching persons how to slaughter goats and sheep for themselves in a clean environment. We would have had the assistance of the veterinary um, department through Dr. Downs. He would have showed the guys on them how to inspect, what to look for before knowing an animal is ready to slaughter. So the livestock has been done at a very uh, overview in terms of looking down from a drone's view and looking down at the project and what we can do to really go forward. Yes, everything will relate on funding. However, we will do as much as we can do with the resources that we have. But the aim in mind really is to promote agriculture and to promote it from a youth level. I mean, I myself have a very young 11-month-old baby, and I would want her to grow up knowing that these are the people that she can eat and enjoy the different foods right here from Tobago. So we are on that level. Um, we very soon we're going to be um, enter into another arrangement where Tobago will be able to access the national public and the national level or regional level as relates to the food security. So very soon we're going to speaking about these type of arrangement where Tobago would now be once again known for something made in Tobago. So we have a lot on the horizon. Yes, funding is an issue. Yes, we have our challenges from every department in the division and in TADCO, but I would give the public the assurance that are going to be working through all of these issues and to don't be distracted.
Excellent. And guys, we're going to take a quick break here and we'll be right back right after this break. See you soon.
Good morning, Tobago. Wake up with Candace and Denise.
Welcome back to Good Morning Tobago, guys. And as we wrap up this morning's a conversation in studio with me, Tamika Seales-Monsano, as well as Miss Karen Shaw. And you guys sat before the JSC yesterday. Miss Shaw, tell us a bit about that experience.
I think from a perspective of the division, it was a wonderful experience. It was an opportunity for a certain level of teamwork to take place within the division. Everybody participated and everybody provided information. And I think because we would have prepared and we had some mock trials, we were well equipped to answer the questions. And I mean, the public could decide as how well we performed, but we felt very good about our performance. And I want to take this opportunity to thank all the team members who would have allowed us to represent the division and the THA as a whole in such a wonderful and successful manner.
Excellent. And Mrs. Monsano, on a scale of 1 to 10, how prepared would you say the division was to sit before the JSC yesterday?
I think we were 11 out of 10 prepared.
Excellent.
Yeah, the division staff we normally are very hard workers, particularly in some areas. I would like to mention home gardening, plant protection, and the plant tissue culture lab in particular, because we are always prepared and ready to serve the farmers. And we saw that in our colleagues and their contributions towards preparation for the exercise in terms of fisheries, in terms of the human resource department, in terms of marketing, livestock and crop production, of course, incentives. Everybody pulled together to provide information. So that shows that we are on the right track in terms of the information that we are recording, the service we are providing, and the fact that we are always striving towards food security and the betterment of Tobago.
Excellent. And Assemblyman Nathisha, Charles-Pantin, before you go, we are nearing the end of the financial year. And so that means that a lot still has to be done, finances still having to be allocated. The question to you is within the next quarter or until the financial year is finished, what are you planning to do to ensure that all suppliers that has been engaged for the year are paid off before we enter into a new financial year?
Well, unfortunately, I am not the Secretary of Finance, right? So I cannot speak to how funds will be moved around. But I am telling you that this administration, we are working very hard together in order to ensure that we meet our obligations. The secretary has a difficult task ahead of him. I shouldn't say unfortunately, I should say fortunately, because it's a difficult task. But I just want to go back quickly in terms of incentives. And when you asked, how am I going to roll out, support all these things. And I remember last year, the chief secretary and the team, and I was part of that team, we did liaise with central government in terms of some of the incentives, the allocations that remain in Trinidad, but they try to roll it out from Trinidad, right? There's an agricultural incentives program rolled out. I think it's under NAMDEFCO, I believe. And we would have made efforts to bring that allocation here so that our technical officers could get involved in determining, who are the farmers, and we'll have that one-on-one with the farmers coming in and all of that. But that process still involves Trinidad coming up here and assessing our stakeholders. And that request for the allocation, I believe if that allocation could be done from Tobago, it would better serve the farmers here in Tobago, right? So that, those are some of the challenges. We want to be able to better coordinate what we have on the island from the island, and not have to always rely on central government to assess our farmers here, right? So, but I want to encourage farmers to tap into the incentives, and because this is a way to support all the initiatives, that all the projects that we are rolling out. I want to thank all the members on the JSC, those that supported the entire preparation before going forward to the JSC, moving onward to the JSC. The report was on point. The division staff, they continue to work hard. We all continue to work hard. TADCO, congratulations to the board and the staff that have been engaged and working hard so far diligently. And thank you, Ms. Felix, for having us on this morning.
And thank you so much. And it was our pleasure having you here this morning, guys. And that's the end of our conversation this morning with the Division of Food Security, Natural Resources, the Environment, and Sustainable Development. Thank you so much for joining us here this morning on GMT, here on Tobago Updates. Remember, we are now on Amplia, and you can catch us live on Facebook or on YouTube. So guys, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Thank you for liking, sharing, and commenting and engaging. Guys, again, thank you for making us the #1 broadcast station here on the island of Tobago. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Tobago Updates.